The SG Child Show is back for its 13th season. Join Sarah Bradford and the SG Child Show team as they explore the world of autism and share stories of hope and inspiration. This season, we're excited to bring you more autism summits featuring experts and advocates from around the world. Go to sjchilds.org to donate and to get more information. Congratulations on 2024's 20,000 downloads and 300 episodes. Hi, and thanks for joining the SG Child Show today. I'm really excited to be with Anneke Elmhirst. Did I get that one right?
Yep.
It's so nice to have you here. I was reading over your profile and everything, and I just know that we're going to have a really great conversation, so much along the same lines of what we are passionate about, and the services that you are providing the community, I think, are really important. So before we get into all of that great stuff, give us an introduction. Let us know a little bit about yourself and what brought you here today.
Sure. I'm Anneke. I am a coach. I specialize in neurodivergence, whatever that means to you. It's a broad umbrella. And I started my career as a behavior analyst, and I determined that that was no longer values aligned for me. When I was learning about behavior analysis, it was, here's a set of tools to help you understand your clients and the people that you work with. And when I got out into the broader world, it was not being applied that way. It was, I tried for a while. I thought maybe I can fix the system. And then I finally had to throw up my hands and say, this is no longer for me. This is not my calling.
Wow. Absolutely. And you yourself, are you also autistic?
I am diagnosed. I'm diagnosed ADHD.
Okay.
I don't have a diagnosis of autism, mostly because as a child, I hit all of the milestones on time. I was a very early reader. And since I didn't cause any problems, nobody thought that anything could be wrong. I was not disruptive. Therefore, I had to be fine.
Now we know so differently, don't we?
A little bit. So might be autistic. I don't have the letters behind my name to prove it, as it were. But
hey. And this is just totally, and somebody might completely disagree with this opinion of mine, but this is my personal opinion. I really think that in your heart of hearts, I think that anyone who suspects or even has an inkling, I don't think typical people have inklings that they are autistic or ADHD or any kind of neurodiversity. Like, I really think that in my heart, and I only because same with me, very like gifted child, read early, did everything, never had any type of a diagnosis, bipolar when I was a teenager, of course, because you can't understand a teenage girl anyways. And then now in my adulthood, my son was diagnosed in 2010, then my husband, then my daughter. And then I was like, wait a second. This girl is just like me. Like, she is the same, everything early on. So I went to a wellness center here in Salt Lake and got a brain scan done. And that's how I found out that I was autistic as well. And on the spectrum, I had ADHD. I had no idea. And now I'm like, ADHD runs my life. Like, I identify with every single bit of it, every single second of the day. And how did I not know that for 45 years?
I was only diagnosed as an adult as well.
Yeah.
And I never thought it was possible for me because my mother is textbook hyperactive ADHD. Like, just seriously, you run down the list of symptoms and you're like, yep. She cannot stop moving. And I wasn't like that. I was sitting with my nose in a book the whole time. So I always thought like that we can't possibly have the same label in that regard. Turns out it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, really getting on Ritalin and then Concerta absolutely changed my life.
I found something on Amazon called ADHD 365. And it's like it's a supplement. I'm trying to think of what it has, methylene blue or something, like that's like a really good energy provider. And I same thing. It's amazing. Like I've never been well with medications throughout. And you know what I think is interesting now that I'm going to bring this up. This is totally random. I think medicine in general is tested and mostly on a typical brain. And so I don't think that we know all of the effects, side effects, you know, all of the things that really occur. And especially when everybody's brain is different, how can you even do a one size fits all medication for a brain? I don't even understand. So
I was actually talking about this. I was offered a position as an early childhood mental health consultant earlier this week, and we were talking in the interview, and we were talking about these labels and how fundamentally useless the labels are. And I have my own personal opinion, which is the labels are great for community building when people
yeah.
choose their own labels. But like two people with depression react differently to different medications. So how can we say that they have the same thing? They might have the same set of symptoms, but they clearly don't have the same underlying neurology.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how we get to that. Where do we get to that? Like, make that be the basis so that we can, you know, create understanding. I think that you and I are on a really good track here.
Yeah.
Watch out, change makers. We're headed your way. But no, I completely agree. And I really like what you had said about the ABA, because I, you know, had no idea about anything ABA until, you know, our son, and then we did early intervention, then we had ABA in our home, and there were we had to go through a few different therapists for me to recognize the same thing. What is right with this? What works for us, and what is going to be more successful? Well, we're talking about a kid who was reading at 1 and writing at 2, non-speaking until 5, but between this 2 and 5 era, we can't just say, what does a dog say? Like, he's already got a vocabulary that he's been reading for, you know, 2 years now into his life. And it was finally after month 3 of what does a dog say? And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like this, how are you helping? How are we helping him? This isn't making any sense to me. I know that's like the most like, obviously that's not a question that everybody does it's just very random, but it was just kind of like finally a light bulb in my head that I realized, okay, I understand that I signed up with this company. They sent this therapist. They put this program in place. But at what point do I realize that it isn't right for my kid and I need to make some changes? And so I like how you said that, because I think that parents, number one, are afraid to make the changes, to stand up and speak up for themselves and for their kiddo. But after that, when I realized that maybe more of a play therapy would be better for him, and I started to really do my research onto some different therapies, and then found a company that offered that. And when we started that, everything changed. Everything changed. He just like, it was like this, a light bulb inside him came on, and everything started to come out. The relationship building part, which, let's be honest, for a non-speaking child, how are they going to make relationships? How, like, I am huge in relationships. I love relationships. How sad for a mom to try to imagine my child not having them in his lifetime. That's not true. That's really not true. But it is a fear that we have. And so I think that understanding these kinds of therapies are really important. What really made you see that was no longer, I like how you said you went out to the world and you saw that it wasn't being kind of applied the same way. What was there like one thing or just kind of a group of things that you were like, nope, I'm not going to do this anymore?
It was really it was a slow burn until it wasn't. When I started my journey, I was working in a residential home in Massachusetts, and I found a critique of ABA online, and I could refute every point with how we were practicing. They were like, ABA tries to get rid of healthy stereotypy. And, I'm in this home with 8 kids, all who have very high support needs. I'm like, I don't care about their stereotypy as long as they're not literally injuring themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that's like my line and our line as a company was not what's going to make them look normal. It was what's going to make them safe.
Yes.
And that was our whole focus. So I thought, oh, this person had a bad experience with one practitioner. That's a shame. It's a good thing the whole field isn't like this. Spoiler alert. I think your example is a really good microcosmic example of how we use really arbitrary things to define development. Like we can go into, the importance of this, the what does the dog say, the verbal behavior, the back and forth. We can dig into that, but also, like, I've worked with a lot of kids who will never speak.
Yeah.
And to focus in on something that's so genuinely non-functional in their lives is so pointless, and yet it's the metric by which I'm gonna call it out right here. It's the metric by which insurance companies determine if they're going to pay for services. And ABA and behavior analysis in general has been shoehorned into, this is an autism therapy. I'm using very big air quotes there because I'm not going to go into the semantics of that whole nonsense. But it was a slow process for me as I kept coming up against, I was in like a managerial role and I had my own clients. And so I kept coming up against clinicians who were like, I want to work on this kid's age-appropriate leisure skills. And I'm like, what does that mean? I am a grown-ass adult woman who watches anime. Like, are you going to put a behavior plan in place for me for that reason? Like, I don't want to, I didn't want to be responsible for this clinician going out there and saying, like, we need to, it's like gender norms. It's ridiculous. It's like, we need to teach your son how to like sports and your daughter how to like ballet. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not functional. That's not appropriate. That's not serving them in any way. It's forcing them into this arbitrary box. And I like, when I moved to Pittsburgh and I joined the local community, I had people, I made friends, and I had some people that I knew but I very slowly became friends with them. And a couple of them told me later, like, yeah, I was really leery of you because of what your job was. Like, these are autistic adults who were like, I did not trust you to have values aligned with my lived experience. And I'm like, I can't fault you for that because I see how the field is and I'm trying to change it. And then I gave up trying to change it. But I realized that in participating in it, I was just I wasn't able to change it to any significant degree. I was just being another linchpin in the system.
That's so hard, isn't it? And I try to really look at it, because throughout my time on the podcast, especially, and having other, autistic neuroaffirming ABA therapists come on and talk about, and I know this is totally not even our topic that we're talking about today, but we got into this little rabbit hole we're in. But I've always tried to really see the big picture and recognize that things are changing. The more autistic adults that are coming into the field will be able to set the pace correctly and get it, I think, onto a better, journey, hopefully, in other people's eyes. And what I like to kind of remind people sometimes is things change over time. I mean, Coca-Cola used to put cocaine in their drinks. And so we have to really recognize that, how many people drink Coke out there today? Millions of people. Do they think about the time when they used to put cocaine in it? Never once ever. I'm the only one that probably ever says it, and trying to make a point that things are changing. Things are changing. Once we kind of realize as a society, no, this is bad, out with that, kind of, then hopefully we'll see some new things in the future. We can only hope, right? That's the movement moving forward. But I really do think that since we, as just us in general, are making movements, making change by talking about this, by putting it in people's minds, by getting the understanding to all the listeners today that will know that their experiences, whether good or bad, if you've been in a car accident, you don't never get in a car ever after that again. Maybe sometimes you don't, but for the most part, like I've been, how many fender benders have you been in? You get it in the car, you go back to work, you kind of do your thing. So hopefully that will, just over time will change. But let's get into what you're doing today so that we can celebrate and talk about that, because that is wonderful and something I'm really passionate about too, because I think that I'm so sorry about that. I don't normally not shut my phone off during podcasts. But for the most part, I think that we're finding this beautiful community of adults that are coming together that really, really want to help themselves, help their other community members, help their own family members. And that sometimes needs a little bit of a nudge or a coach, if you will. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you kind of shifted and made it into what you're doing.
Sure. So I actually learned that coaching was a job, a thing, when I was 8. My mom left her job as a physical therapist and decided to become a coach.
Wow.
And so she was very successful. She worked with executives as the money-making side of the business. And she worked with widows because my father passed when I was 7. She worked with widows as her passion. Mm-hmm. And so when I was having this crisis, having this, my master's degree is now useless. All of my work experience doesn't mean anything anymore. What am I going to do? She said, you could coach. And I said, that's ridiculous. And then I sat in on a course with the Coactive Training Institute, and I was instantly hooked. It is so I've gone through all of their coursework. I'm just waiting to finish my hours for their certification process, because as you might have already gathered, standards and ethics mean a lot to me. Anyone can call themselves a coach. It's not a protected term like therapist. And so it's really important for me to have a body of work and a community that I can consult to make sure that I'm engaging in best practices. As to what a coach is and does, since coach is sort of a catch-all term, that varies. What I do, I describe it as, I use a metaphor. we love a metaphor. We love ourselves a metaphor. A therapist is like a contractor on your house. Something breaks, they come in, they diagnose, they fix, if it's, an ongoing issue, they will help you with mitigation strategies, come in periodically. They're licensed. That's what a therapist does. What a coach does is much closer to interior design. You might be living in a perfectly functional house that's serving your needs. Look around and say, I kind of hate it here. And a coach is going to come in and say, okay, what do you want it to look like? What makes it better, since moving out of your own brain isn't an option? Oh man, when that day comes, I'll be the first to line up for a trial. But being able, a coach is a facilitator for what you want to do in life and how you want to change, how you want your perspectives to change. A coach is not a consultant. Generally, in my school of thought anyway, coaches do not give advice. Coaches, one of the big pillars of this coaching school that I went through is clients are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. Your client does not need you to fix them. Your client needs you to listen to them. Your client needs you to be present with and to hear them. And everything follows pretty naturally from that.
Yeah. I think when humans generally, when we are heard and valued, we can easier, how do I say this? We can have an easier time seeing for ourselves that idea we have, that plan. And I like that you said that it's like, okay, well, what do you think you should do now? Or, you're kind of giving them a gentle push along rather than here's the leash. I'm going to yank it and you're going to follow this direction. So
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I like, I've considered going back and getting, an LPC or an LCSW, getting that certification and becoming a therapist. But the problems inherent within ABA, to some extent, are also present within traditional therapy, specifically the medicalized model, the needing to kowtow to health insurance in order to get anything done. I mean, if you want, I don't know if your listeners are a bit aware of this, but in order to get therapy, your therapist needs to put down and have insurance pay for it. Your therapist needs to put down a diagnostic code. They need to say this person has this set of symptoms wrong with them. And then they need to write a treatment plan that they submit to insurance that says, and this is how I'm going to make the problems go away. And it's all nice and neat in theory, and I think we all can recognize that life does not work that way. Especially with mental health, just identifying the problem does not solve the problem.
Yeah.
If thinking yourself healthy worked, no one would be mentally ill.
Yeah.
And I say this as someone who has struggled with depression. Like, it used to drive me crazy. I was like, I know that I'm being irrational right now. When am I going to stop being irrational?
Yeah. Somebody tell me to stop.
Oh,
right.
So yeah, I like being able to exist outside the medical model and say, okay, maybe you do have depression. Maybe you are autistic. That's not for me to decide. That's not for me to label. I'm going to work with you as you are. And if you decide, this problem is untenable and I do need medication for it, I will support you in seeking out that help and that medication. Therapy and coaching are not mutually exclusive by any means. I'd say at least 50% of my clients also have therapists. We do different things.
Yeah. And I love that you're working with the neurodiverse community. And one of your things said relationship coaching. Is that right?
Yeah.
What in your what do you think is maybe like the top three, no, even one top thing that you need to do in a relationship to really to try to make it work? Well, I have my one thing. Well, I want to know what yours is.
It would be so easy for me to just say communication,
Yeah.
bam, drop
Right?
it on the table. But communication has so many steps to it.
Yeah.
That I would honestly highlight the pre-communication step of self-reflection. Because in order to communicate something, you need to know what it is you want to communicate.
100%.
And a lot of people struggle with self-reflection, with identifying what they want. And if you don't know what you want, you then can't advocate for what you want. I work with a lot of clients who are, in alternative relationship structures like polyamory and whatnot. And it's difficult because we have this cultural roadmap for straight monogamous relationships. Say, this is how things are supposed to fall out based on the duration of the relationship, based on gender roles, et cetera, et cetera. And the map is almost worse than useless, because it doesn't apply to most people. That's not the right path for them, I would argue. And that might be my bias speaking, but we're all speaking through a lens of bias.
Yes.
But the something that I took a class in college, I think, called just The Family. And we learned about the communication patterns between LGBTQ plus couples versus straight couples, because they didn't have these gender roles to fall back on. You can't just assume, I'm the woman, so I'll do the dishes. You're the man, so you'll mow the lawn. Like, you have to actually talk about these things. And so many people are told from birth, this is what you want according to society, that they haven't actually examined themselves to determine, oh, do I actually want that? Or do I want acceptance and approval? Because we all do. There's nothing bad with wanting acceptance and approval. The problem is, oftentimes in our society, it's conditional on following the scripts. And especially for neurodivergent people, those scripts can be hard to impossible to actually get right.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? My husband always says, if you try to be someone you're not, you'll never succeed. You'll never succeed at trying to be someone you're not. You'll always just have to be yourself, and you can be successful at being yourself. And I love that, because how many times do we get into, relationships and we maybe act as the other person what we think that they would like us to act like, or what we might take as their values and interpret them in our own lives. And it might not actually resonate with our own core values. So I love that you said self-reflection, because knowing what you want, it's interesting you said that too, because I was married. I'm on my second marriage. My first marriage was definitely a marriage of learning what I did not want. the old learning what you don't want card. Check. But without that, definitely could have continued all of those same patterns for as long as they would have allowed themselves to play out. So I think that having that time of self-reflection, and each of us are so different on our paths, the way we pursue relationships with others. I grew up as an only child. I felt very lonely a lot. And so I wanted to make relationships. I craved and yearned for them, not really knowing that the self person was the person I needed to really be comfortable with being alone was myself the whole time. And it wasn't until I was in a really healthy, wonderful relationship that I'm in now, my marriage, that I can recognize that and can say, I am such a good person on my own. I could do this on my own. I would never want to, but I could, now I'm I see that value. I can't imagine not being in my 20s somewhere trying to figure that out. I'm really glad I'm where I'm at, knowing, what I know now. But, if we could only know what we know now back then.
Oh, yeah. It's so interesting. This is sort of just formulating as you were talking, that there's this self-acceptance and there's the external acceptance. And I think a lot of people like to pretend that it's one or the other. You either need external validation or you need internal validation. And, you're one kind of person or the other, or one is more valuable. We are such social creatures that really it does come down to how you feel about yourself is going to reflect how the people around you feel about you. And as a child, that's a terrifying thought, because you're not in control of who's around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a learning process as an adult to be like, how do these people make me feel about myself? Not just how do I feel about these people?
Of course. What value do they bring? Will they bring? Do they have value? Do I find value with myself when I'm with them? There's so many questions to ask and to have kind of, yeah. And as a parent, I mean, I feel like that's kind of my role in helping at least, one of my children to develop those skills and understand. And I can really see the intentions that they have in relationship building. And it really makes me so proud and happy to know that we're showing her the right steps to take for her own internal relationship kind of. And there's always kind of you have to go through some drama and some loss and things like that to kind of learn and get the experience. You can't not have those things or protect them for those things. But I think it's just really beautiful to see her own ideas and her own skill sets that are forming, that I'm like, this is really going to be a healthy woman, really healthy woman someday. Right?
Love that.
Self-love, confidence, and I remember being little and just like you said, you're just scared. You don't know, you can't control the people around you. And I was always less valued than I known that I am now. I always was told I was less valued then. And so that was one of the things very first off when she was really little was, I'm going to tell this person, you love yourself more than anyone else in the world. Grandma says, oh, you love me more than, no, I love me. 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 I'm not trying to make a monster, but at the same time, I think that it's okay. Having your own mom tell you, it's okay to love you more than me. You just always do it. You give yourself that, I'll back you up. I'll give you all that second dish of love that you need, but you give it to yourself first. And I can't know what that's like because that never happened for me. I can only see kind of the seed that's, growing and just being like, so great. I love the way this is going. So I'll get back to you in 10 or 15 years and let you know exactly how it's worked out. But no, I'm so excited to have this opportunity to try to help another human, find their own role in their life.
Yeah, I just I decided a while ago that I wasn't going to have kids, but my partner's wife just gave birth to twins, and they are now my godchildren.
Oh.
And I cannot there are not words to express how much I love these children.
Oh.
And like they have been and the community that she has built around herself that is coming together now around these kids. Like these kids are going to have, they're going to have a weird childhood for one, but independently
they don't know
of
that, though, right? It's only from others' perspective.
Yeah, right? They're going to be they already are, from the moment we learned that they were in existence, so loved.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think that's one of those like inner child healing moments where you think about this new life and you think like, yes, I love this tiny human, this being separate from myself, and I deserve that same love too, because just purely on the grounds of I am also a human.
Yeah. It's amazing what can occur when we put our intentions into love. When we, have those intentions set, not only, can we reflect it into our community, but then we start seeing it. I'm going to get all emotional. We start seeing it being reflected back on us. Wow, that's an amazing feeling, to go out in the community. I was just at the grocery store earlier, and there is just a wonderful bagger with Down syndrome. I love him more than anything. I even wrote a book about Down syndrome, and I give him the copies, and he takes it to the elementary school and reads it to the kids because it's a children's book. And it's just so special. And every day, I've been going there for a decade or more. And every day, whenever I see him, it doesn't matter how far across the store, I just hear, Sarah, and I look and there he is and he's waving. Oh, my heart. And everybody else around me, I'll notice, other people's reactions and things. And I just think, oh, I bet you wish you had somebody who loved you so much. Or, that lady's crazy. Look at this weird lady giving hugs to everybody in the grocery store, whatever. When that light that you give out is reflected back on you, it's just the most warm, wonderful feeling. So practice. That is for sure. So any plans in the future? Any things you're working on or stuff like that?
Right now I'm working on growing my business, and it's I don't know if anyone out there knew this, but solo business ventures are really hard. Mostly because you have to be a jack of all trades, and I'm terrible at promoting myself. And that's like 90% of the work. Like I coach maybe a couple of hours a day, and most of it is, posting and writing and trying to connect with the people that I want to serve. And what I'm really hoping to do at some point is to write I want to write a book. I have like at least three separate topics that are sort of germinating in my head, but I think 2025 might be the year that I actually sit down and like actually pound them out onto the paper. Um, I am, yeah, I'm in such a spot of infinite potential right now that is both really exuberating and totally terrifying.
Mhm.
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in the next year or so. Um, I'm yeah, I'm what I'm looking forward to the most, I think, actually, is more self-education. Um, I learned about a new therapy framework a couple of days ago that I want to dive into and explore. Um, I met a cool new person that I want to get to know. Just like learn. I'm a sponge. I love to learn.
I love it too. I couldn't agree more. That's what, this will be the 301st episode of the podcast, by the way. So, yeah, we made it into the 300th. That is so many conversations and so much learning to be had that I've had the opportunity and honor to be able to have all these amazing people. Where can people find you? Is there a website or social media, things like that, where we can go and connect with you?
Sure. On Instagram, I am All for Love Coaching. It's ALLFORLOVECOACHING. I really should have made it shorter. I'm sorry. And that's also my website, allforlovecoaching.com. And is that it? I think I'm technically on Blue Sky, but like that's not.
I haven't gotten there yet. I need to check that out.
That's just for pictures of my cats and my embroidery. Like that's not a business thing. You can find me on there, but like good luck actually connecting beyond. Oh my gosh, Esmeralda did this cute thing.
Oh, that's great. Oh my gosh. Well, it's been so nice to get to know you and have you here today as a guest. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing and just really giving people out there space and a heartfelt space of value. And just, when people feel seen, they can do incredible things. And I think that it takes a special person to see people and help them see themselves like that. So thank you for the beautiful work you're doing in the community. I love that. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you. I hope we can do this more often. I really I want to talk to you on a weekly basis, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This has been delightful.
I know, so much fun. And if anything changes and you decide to go another direction anywhere in the future, get back to me and we will have you back on to discover that.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's been such a nice chat and I look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. In the heart of the city, she's shining bright. Oh yeah, stories of love and courage all throughout the night. Her voice resonating, an anthem for all through the trials and the trials. She answers the call, a mother and a fighter, breaking barriers in stride. With love as her guide, she'll never hide. She's changing the world for you. With the heart that's beating strong, empathy's a melody. In the journey we all belong. Followers gather like stars in the night. So bright, 44,000 voices sharing in the light. She stands for family, advocates for more. A movement of compassion, ways will soar. Podcast together, a symphony of support. Creating life, changing rapport. She's changing the world for you. With a heart